right, friends, now we're going to walk into the child development. Just a caveat, this is going to be a very long one, so take it in chunks as you need to. So basically, what's child development? Every child has their own unique path, their own unique purpose, and their own unique way of how to realize it. That's exactly what human design is teaching us, okay? So in today's world, our children dropped into the safety net of the cross of the planning, and it's going to end. And this is where it's essential to learn your own authority. It's our children who, for the most part, will become the parents of the rave children that are going to be born. Now, of course, this is all speculation. I just want you to understand that raves are speculation. This was all provided to Ra, and maybe it's theory. We don't know. We are seeing how there's a rise in autism, ADHD, those kind of things. Some people say it's a part of the vaccinations. Could be. I don't know. I'm not speculating on it either. And it also can be this rise up because of that's where humanity's moving, is to more these rave children. In Ra's language, they will not be have functioning bodies. They will more operate through the transauric energy of pentas. So they will be better off housed in spaces where they can work in pentas. One of the series of books that I actually read was called Letters from 500. And it was kind of interesting because it was a fella who had these mystical experiences with entities that are 500 years out into our future. And one of the things that came up was their children, as they were having children, they actually had like housing facilities for these children, and the parents weren't actually quote unquote parenting in their own homes or spaces, but there were people that were parenting and caring for these children in these facilities, which kind of goes along with what Ross said. Again, I don't know. Is that where humanity's going? I have no idea. So our work here, I'm going to talk to you about being a child development analyst and helping parents really recognize their children in a whole new way and help them, nourish that purpose as they walk through. So the challenge that we have is that we're actually providing parents with groundwork for their child's individual path in ways that are appropriate to the child's stage of development. So this requires that we have parents that have actually leaned into their own authority, are operating through their own PHS, because it's the parents that ultimately are making the decisions in the homes to begin with, and nourishing the child to begin to make decisions and understand themselves better. So the parents are going to be the guides. Our 7-centered model showed that the parent was the authority. Now we're moving to this 9-centered model, this body graph that has 9 centers, and it is through coaching the parent that the child can be guided to their design. It is essential for parents to have a strong foundation in their own experiment, so that the essential tools of that uniqueness are already being worked through the parent, so that the child can also do that for themselves. So you want to educate and guide the parent as much as you can. You're going to have a lot of information here. This is classes that I took through the International Human Design School around parenting and family. Okay, so I'm bringing you Ra's material, and so that you can really lean into looking at a child's chart, looking at the parents' charts and going, okay, this is what stage they're in. This is what they need to nourish their body and their mind, and then and move from there. Okay, so if a parent's job is to help guide them to their purpose, so it is the parent's job, not if. which arises out of living correctly. And we do that through the child's correct, like at whatever child the child's age is. So that you're going to see here that there's stages of development. And we know this. As we grow up, there's different stages. We're in the home until we're 7, and then we move out into school, and then we move out into the world and start doing different things. So there's all these different phases that go on for our cellular structure. So of course, today's parenting model, can you notice on the picture? They were authorities. So this is something that I am shedding. And some of you, if you have the gate 18 and you are adults, it's this shedding of the fear of authority. We had the fear of authority beat into us. And children are immature and they need to be told what to do. This is what the 7-centered model thinks. They need to be told what to do instead of, cultivating their inner authority. Parents, teachers didn't want anybody to use their inner authority ever when I was growing up. And I still see most of this happening right now. Okay. Well, we have the correct bedtimes and meals and discipline for our children. Things begin to change. Okay. We in the 7-centered model, we pushed our children to perform well. Children have to do better than their parents. Okay. There was expectations that the parents had and still have of their children. So children are immature and they need to learn what to do by parental persuasion and reason. This is the 7-centered modeling thing. Okay. We know this, right? We have a child and we're begging them, we're pleading them, we're convincing them. So the authority of parents should be filled with explanations, rewards, and mental motivations. Children have to learn right from wrong in teachable moments. They have to be explained why and how to behave. Again, this is all the 7-centered paradigm, and we're moving to a new paradigm. So let's take a look at the new paradigm because I think it's more important. So all auras are equal in their impact, regardless of their age. So honor and nurture the emergence of their uniqueness, their individuality, according to the stage of their development. A child's freedom to be correct is not license. It's not anything goes, okay? The parent's inner authority is an important part in the relationship between parent and child. So yes, we are cultivating their inner freedom, okay? Their inner freedom to decide. And yet there's still boundaries. They're still children. Their brains are developing, okay? So the role of the 9-centered parent is to first work with yourself first. You have to do that. So if you're working with others and you're helping them in their development of their child, the parent has to be correct first, okay? They have to be able to keep the child safe with food, shelter, protection, and nurturing. This is critical to all human beings. Provide education, skill development, and knowledge, and support their emerging awareness. Children are fully intelligent at birth. They only lack experience and development. Each individual has their own needs for food, sleep, socializing that contribute to the development of their uniqueness. Children are here to fulfill their own destiny through their own unique expression of purpose. So each type has a unique aura potential. Children thrive when they are treated according to their type. Learning the dance of type to type communication can improve the parent relationship as well. So if we were to just map this out and, look at the development of the brain, of course, we can see that it takes, this says 20 here, but in my research, they say 25 before your prefrontal cortex is actually developed enough. So human cellular cycles take place over 7 years, okay, for most cells in the body. The key feature of each 7-year cycle is the hardware in the brain. So each 7-year cycle has its own feature or emphasis in brain development and consequently consciousness awareness potential. This has impact upon our work as each stage of brain development in the childhood empowers the child into new ways, okay? So we're going to look at these different stages. And of course, the key here always, always, and always is this 9-centered parent. The mother is the key. Okay, so the first 7 years matters most in the child's life. It is the most powerful conditioning period, and the mother is primary caregiver most of the times, unless if something has happened. Okay, she will have the most partnership contact with the child. Now, again, this is most of the time. This isn't always. So mothers will do everything she can for her young. Remember how I talked about the defense circuit when we were talking about the WA? That's the mother's role. That's the feminine role, is to defend the child. So you cannot work with parents unless the mother has her own human design reading and is already in the experiment, okay? There's no point in doing children's work if the parents haven't actually stepped in. So she will recognize that you can see things about her and therefore her child. So the 7-year lifespan actually was 30 years long, the 7-centered lifespan. So back in the day, if you hit 30 years old, you were doing really well. This was what we call the Saturnian life cycle. So when you get into the cycles class that we talked about, I touch on this where 15 was midlife. That's where we saw girls having babies. And if you hit 30, even if you hit into your 40s, like, you were very lucky. So for years, the Saturnian life cycle was operating in humans in the 7-centered cycle. Okay. So that 28-year cycle, we saw a lot of rapid decay and people died at the age of 30. So very few people lived until they were 60. Whoops. And now we have actually shifted into this longer life cycle because of Uranus. And again, I believe in the flat Earth. So these images are just images that NASA has provided to us to say what these planets look like. Just a caveat there. So the 9-centered life cycle is this 84-year life cycle. So actually midlife is around that 42. So when the discovery of Uranus happened, when they were able to see it with a telescope, the longevity and quality of life are dependent on our differentiated digestion through PHS. So when you go into the wellness code, take a look at all of that information, because that's where everything starts. That's where our physical bodies and our brains begin to be nourished through our PHS. So the 9-centered being has a hotter body than our ancestors, and we are quite mutative because now we carry both the left and right angle variation orientation. So what does that mean? Right angle cross, there's juxtapositions, and there's left angle cross. And you will learn that in the purpose module that is there. So you'll be able to see that right angle crosses, this is all about like our own personal destiny. Juxtaposition is a bridge. And then left angles are all about karma. They're all about transpersonal. They're all about, actually connecting with other people. Right angles, they kind of are self-contained. They want to be on their own, doing their own muse. So the first phase, this is always proper digestion. That's very important. So your child, this is how we all human beings now are operating, because we're all, past that 1781. And potentially we could have had people that lived, 100 plus years in there and brought some of the 7-centered energy in, but we're fully into this 9-centered aspect. Okay, we're fully into it. So proper digestion. And what happens here is that the strategy and authority enhances the awareness. That's what we're all designed to get to, is awareness and making decisions from the form intelligence, from the intelligence of the body. Ra talked about God, but God isn't something that's outside of you. God is something inside of you. So like this intelligent form was created, and for years we've been conditioned to just believe our minds and absolutely forfeit the intelligence of the body. The body is intelligent. Strategy and authority don't prevent conditioning, but what they do is they help you support what conditioning is going to turn into awareness and enhance your life. PHS enhances the brain development, which is critical in young children. And then the second phase, so from 30 to 42, and you guys will see that I talk about this in the primary health system as well. We talk about the ages. This is where we learn to, be on our correct path, on our own individual environment that's best for us. So life lessons, relationship opportunities, this is starting from 30 to 42. This establishes the quality of longevity for the form. So if the form is in the right place, the PHS is being honored. Now, the longevity of the physicality of the body can actually take place. And what happens is this reduces the resistance that the form has to deal with. So for example, shores, it's being able to see the horizon. If there's bodies of water around, great. But whether it's natural or artificial, whether it's man-made or it's nature-made, it's about being able to see the horizon and not feeling quote unquote confined. It's the shoreline, being able to look out into the ocean and see for miles and miles. Now, if that human being is living in a valley where there's mountains on both sides, and they can't see the sunrise or the sunset because the mountains are blocking that initial movement of the sun coming towards, that person is not in the correct environment. And their body's going to always feel resistance and that confinement in a space where the body actually wants to have openness. So it can be difficult for the physical body. So phase 3, this is where the Uranus opposition to the Chiron happens. This is 42 to 50. So this is actually where we learn to shape how we see, this is how to recognize the experiences of life and how they're interpreted in our minds. Instead of taking on all the belief systems and the opinions of others, we now see through our correct perspective. So again, go back to the primary health system and the Reef psychology. And all this information is provided to you for you in there. Okay. So when we're on our individual correct path and we're seeing through our correct perspective, the being sees exactly what they're here to see and to recognize how uniquely they see. So perspective is developed from our unique process of conceptualizing and to enhance our potential for awareness. And then post-Chiron, so this is 50 to 84, we then really hone in on the correct motivation. So emphasis in this phase is on the observation of the vehicle by the passenger, okay? So the vehicle is the body. We really lean into watching how the physical body is moving, is operating. So you look at how you're motivated. I'm motivated by hope. I only get involved when someone asks me and I know I have the solution, period. If I transfer into guilt and I try to fix things, that's a signpost for me to know, oh, guess what? I'm not here to be in that guilt phase and that fix phase. I'm here to be hopeful. So the potential for the blossoming of wisdom in the expression of the nature or the mature outer authority. That's really where we want to get to. We want to be able to speak through wisdom, through experience, through taking in other people, filtering it through our own consciousness, and then providing it to others, speaking about our experience around all of that. So the potential for awakening and consciousness and fulfillment of individual purpose, realization of consciousness while in form, and the potential for the nine-centered intimacy through communication and communion. So in your child, the development of the child goes in 7 years. Birth to 7, 7 to 14, 14 to 21, 21 to 28. The key feature of each 7-year cycle is physical in the hardware of the brain. Always. We want to be nurturing the body and the brain always. So human cellular cycle takes 7 years. So when we're talking about the deconditioning process of 7 years, you know, as a manifesting generator, I want to go faster. But that's not possible. It's not possible because the cellular structure needs to shed all of the conditioning and then move forward into the new reality of making decisions through strategy and authority. So the idea that the brain is somehow fixed in early childhood, which has an idea that was very strongly believed up until fairly recently and is actually completely wrong. There's no evidence that the brain is somehow set and can't be changed. We know this. Dr. Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, man, there's so like Dr. Bruce Lipton. Those are 3 magical scientists that I love to follow. And it's very clear that our brain has elasticity and can heal our body at any time. It can at any time. So it all depends on how are we speaking to ourselves? How are we speaking to our children? Right? If we're still using the 7-centered model, their bodies and their brains are not developing correctly. So stage 1, baby continues to grow new neurons. These are nerve cells which function as brain communication cells. However, the growth is not as rapid as it is in the womb. So areas involved in more basic functions mature first. These include, for example, in the processing of information from the senses and in controlling movement, right? We have to learn all of this. We are born with all the intelligence, but we're learning the development of this physical body. Like, this is brand new to us. How do our hands move? How do things go? So this rapid and intense growth is both genetic and environmental. The environmental aspect is influenced by education. So this is our ability to nourish. So definitely nourish through the PHS as a child. So the rapid brain growth in this stage is in the neuron synaptic connections, which form communication networks for neurotransmitters, which is brain chemistry. So one of the spaces that I love the most is the Heart Math Institute. So not only do our brains have neurotransmitters, but so does our heart. So doing connection exercises with your child, help them, lay their hand on their heart, lay the other hand on their mind, and bring in some meditation music, speak positive affirmations, so that that child can grow up with a connection from their heart neurons up to their brain neurons. And what can happen is that as we nourish the child and we help them do these kind of things, there can be, massive connection to the intelligence of the body and to the intelligence of our connection to our, energetic path. Okay, so from birth until 3, the synaptic connections grow at a faster pace than any other time in life. By the age of 3, there's 80% of its adult volume, and there are only about 200% of the adult synaptic connections. So learning takes place at the synapses between neurons as cells excite or inhibit one another and develop more robust synapses with repeated stimulation and impulses. So that's where we get, right, the if we're stuck in a pattern, that's where the synapses it was excited, it learned that pathway, but then we don't teach it any other pathways. So when people learn to be ambidextrous, now what they've done is they've actually created 2 different neural pathways in their body. I've tried to write with my left hand, and I try to do that when there's something that's really stuck and I want to bring it out in my journal, I will use my left hand. And here's what's really funny is that a lot of the time, how that language formality shows up there, it actually sometimes will look like my father. It will look like my mother. It will look like my brother. It will look like my sister. So I know that there's all these old pathways that I believed based off of their belief systems or what they told me. And it comes out in my journal. So fascinating. So again, this first stage, at around 3, the brain neurons start pruning and cutting back. Isn't that crazy? At this time, the brain sacrifices the growth in favor for the body. So then the body starts to develop and grow. So at this beginning stage, it's all about the mom. It's all about whoever the primary caregiver is. Now, of course, there are times that, the mother isn't involved. So development of body awareness, movement, speech, bifocal, visual interaction or integration, development of learning capacity, vocabulary, cause and effect, development of relationships within the family. This is all like this internal family structure. Early development in strategy and authority can happen here. And then from 7 to 14, we have a different stage of development. So this is where the hormones start to change, and we start to move into what we call adolescence. The reproductive hormones shape not only our sex-related growth, but our behavior and overall social behavior. So the hormone systems involved in the brain's response to stress are also changing during the teens. So stress hormones can be very complex and affect the brain and the behavior. So puberty begins with a cascade of hormones, with the hypothalamus to the pituitary, which activates changes in the ovaries and the testes. So that's really important, because the ovaries and the testes are the life force energy of the sacral center. So this phase right here, it is so important. And I'm going to tell you my experience. So I was told that when I went on my period, my very first few times on my period, I bled for like weeks on end. I was exhausted. I was a very active child. So I shouldn't say very active. I enjoyed volleyball and baseball. So I was so tired. I could barely function doing school and doing these things. So my doctor put me on birth control pills to control my hormones. Well, that was probably one of the worst things that could have happened, especially to my sacral center. And I stayed on those for like 20 some odd years, which actually screwed up the chemicals in my body, which I'm still at my age, still repairing the chemicals and the hormones in my body. So be aware of these things, that what we're putting into our bodies need to enhance it, need to help this development of the 7 to 14 so that the chemical composition of the body can be enhanced. This is where the gray matter is, where the neurosynapses are forming. It is a complex and ever-growing network of neural pathways. The white matter occurs when these neural pathways become identified as high traffic pathways and are coated with protein. Like insulating wires, this streamlines and speeds the bioelectrical connections. So synapses exercised by experience survive and are strengthened, right? This is where we're building these neural pathways. So while others are pruned away, the synaptic pruning takes place again in this stage as new refinements in learning and social skills are advanced. So we learn our social behavior here. We start to learn things and put them into neural pathways inside of our brain. The frontal and midbrain attain peak gray matter volume at age 11 in girls and 12 in boys, corresponding with the onset of sexual puberty before undergoing an extended sequence of thinning into adulthood. So this suggests possible interactions between puberty hormones and gray matter development. Brain organization continues to advance, but the emotional centers, reasoning abilities are not totally formed here yet. Okay, we know this. Our children can get very like they're unreasonable, right? And they also think they're invincible. So attention is on the immediate outside world, like who are your schoolmates, aunts, uncles, that kind of stuff. Development of learning skills, the foundation of social skills. So this begins exploration of the world. So your neighbors, your friends in school. So it's just one step outside of the family network. So the capacity of the person in our third stage is to learn. The capacity of a person to learn will never be greater than during their teenage years, 14 to 21. I love it when we talk about like learning languages. Like we're doing a lot during this age. And during this development, exposing children to whatever it is that they need to be exposed to. So if it's different kinds of sports, languages, arts, music, anything to get their bodies to be ambidextrous, create multiple movements in their minds and their brains. This is so important. At the same time, teens and adults seem to engage different parts of their brain at different extents during tests, requiring calculation and impulse control or reaction to emotional content. So, of course, as we age, we get more emotionally intelligent. But we're learning this, right? This is where we see lots of outbursts. Like children have lots of outbursts during this time, because all of this chemical stuff is happening. So the hippocampus growth in females and the amygdala growth in males characterizes this phase. The hippocampus forms an important part of the limbic system and the region that regulates emotions. The hippocampus is associated mainly with memory, in particular long-term memory. The organ also plays an important role in spatial navigation. The amygdala is rich in androgen, yes, receptors that bind to testosterone in both male and females. The amygdala deals with anxiety, sadness, and our responses to fear, including physical aggression. So again, here, there is such a huge uprise in antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications for teenagers. Well, this is where sometimes I can see where medication can come in to help out. But there's so many other things that we can explore prior to this. Because this is, again, very similar to my story of taking the birth control pills. It's not allowing for the body to create wisdom of its own hormone capacity. And we see a lot of this right now in our society, where there's such an uptick of pharmaceuticals in young people because their outside world has not taught them how to actually go inward and drop into the awareness and the intelligence of their own physical body. We're caught up in our conditioned minds still, and actually probably more today than any other time in history. And this is our tipping point. So teen brains have both fast-growing synapses and sections that remain unconnected. So this leaves teens easily influenced by their environment and more prone to impulse behavior, right? We know this. We know how peer pressure is huge here, and that's why in order to understand these chemicals and understand what's going on emotionally, unfortunately, a lot of these children as well aren't nourished properly. They don't have the correct nourishment. They're going for boxes and canned stuff and all that kind of stuff that, may not enhance their growing up. So they don't know how to control any of this or be in it. And I don't want to say control it, but be in it and understand it. So they lash out, they get very impulsive. This is where peer pressure can really take them off the game. And teens are driven to develop a sense of self and identity, and especially a sense of how to, how they're seen by others. And our job as child development, right, is to really enhance and, I don't want to say drill into, but appreciate our projectors, honor the manifestors. Really, show the reflector how unique they are, and they can live this very magical life. And really lean into asking those generators, getting them involved in the conversation so that they can really hone in on their response mechanism. Okay. So here, this is attention on themselves. This is the stage that we're in. They have attention on themselves. They physically matured, in that old seven-centered Saturnian, that's the mid cycle. So they've already started to mature through that. So there's separation from the family unit. They're going farther out. So the development of sexual exploration and identity, this is so big at this point. Expansion of the worldview. So the family is seen from the outside for the first time. The world is larger than just the neighborhood or the school. So begins exploration of one's role in the world, and who will I be when I'm done with school, right? We ask that question all the time. What do you want to do when you grow up? Fourth stage. So this is 21 to 28. And between, that 28 to 42, that's really where we're starting to lean into adulting. So in this 21 to 28, the brain does not begin to resemble that of an adult until, these early 20s. So different parts of the cortex mature at different rates. So the brain has, different responsibilities. It's this controlling impulses, planning ahead, the hallmarks of adult behavior. The cortex matures from the back to the front. So that's why we say the prefrontal cortex actually is not developed until the age of 25, because it's moving from the back to the front. And that's where we really want to honor the intelligence of the body instead of putting so much emphasis on mental decision-making. That's why we want to continue to drop our children into the intelligence of the body and their strategy and authority, which we're going to get to, okay? As our brain develops, the fibers connecting nerve cells are wrapped in a protein that greatly increases the speed at which they can transmit impulses from cell to cell. This is myelin. So the results in what is called white matter in the cortex regions. The resulting increase in connectivity, a little like providing a growing city with a fast integrated communication system, shapes how well different parts of the brain are going to work in tandem. So here, this is attention on the outside world, development of your role in the world, separation from the family unit, and exploration of bonds beyond the family. So as you went through, when we see our role or our profile number, that really is what happens throughout our life, but we see it more so in this adult development, when we start to go out into the world and be seen separate from the family unit. And of course, mother is always the ally, or the caregiver. So again, when we're struggling between the 7-centered raising of our children and the 8 and the 9-centered raising of our children, there's going to be a huge difference as how that child moves forward. So how can you condition your child to actually live their unique self? Conditioning is natural, okay? We can either condition as that 7-centered, homogenized, authority aspect, or allow for your children to step into their 9-centered potential. Deep conditioning for the mother, to want her child to be perfect or to be what she was not capable of, or to exceed in her success, or to want opportunities, right? These are all conditioning. However, is it correct? Is the child designed to be perfect? No. Who is designed to be perfect? Nobody. We're all designed, because we're on this material plane, to have trial and error. So the first 7 years are critical. She has to understand the limitations of her child's aura and her own, so that they can shape these children in a different way. So you want to really decondition the old parenting models. That is so important. So I'm working with a family right now, and this is something that I'm helping the parents do, to see that it's not just one way to parent. They have all of the types in their family network. So how can we do this so that each child feels unique? And that first starts with the adults in the household, okay? So what can happen? Mothers and manifestors become angry, right? They try to control them. They're on alert all the time. Mothers of generators become frustrated, telling your child what to do all the time. Mothers of projectors become bitter, exasperated. What in the world is this child doing? Mothers of reflectors become mystified, can't figure out their child. It's like an alien. So you now get to step in and shift the narrative for these parents in a new parenting model. And that new parenting model starts with food, because food is our greatest homogenizing aspect. It's even stronger than the penta, it's stronger than relationships, and it's stronger than the actual program. Food is our earliest conditioning influence, right? Our governments try to tell us what should be on our plate. Society has homogenized values for food. An apple a day, finish your food, eat together and talk, fat is bad, sugar's bad. Food pyramids, avoiding gluten, only eating organic, GMO, and, all the kind of fad diets, which can work for some bodies. So don't get me wrong. There can be some things that work for some bodies. However, it's all conditioning, because your physical body will eat based off of, or will be nourished based off of the primary health system, period. So parents carry fears about feeding their children and wanting to do the right things. Of course, most parents want that. The food a parent buys, cooks, and serves is meant to be from an inner authority decision by the parent. Not an outer authority. So not somebody telling you about this fad diet or this or that or what's good or what's bad. It's not about a mental decision. It's about the physicality and the intelligence of the body. It is not the child's decision what food is cooked or served, as long as the parent is buying the food. It is the child's inner authority decision as to what they eat within the context of what the parent is providing. So, caveat here. If you can help your parents understand the primary health system of each child, hopefully they can create a space where each child can then be nurtured in the way that they need to be nurtured. So digestion is the purpose of eating. It takes the correct nutrients from the food, and that food becomes fuel for the body. If digestion takes place correctly, then the system remains healthy and can cleanse properly at a cellular level. Correct digestion takes place in the context of strategy and authority. So there's 6 distinct kinds of digestive systems and 12 regiments. So digestive regiments for PHS ultimately enhances brain function as well as the functioning of the body. We digest experiences as well as food, okay? So our 9-centered body, well, of course, it's constantly filtering the neutrino stream. So this is like, we are filtering agents. Nothing is solid. Everything is flowing through us. So the neutrino information is filtered through the crystals of our consciousness. So we have our personality crystal, our design crystal, and the monopole that holds these two together in our illusion. The quality of frequency captured by the monopole depends upon the digestion regimen or color. If the color is not correct, we are cut off from our unique intelligence and the sensory gifts of tone. Tone is either right or left, and the design internal variable relates to memory storage or learning, okay? So what you want to do is, again, if this sounds like I'm speaking French to you, go back to the primary health system information and then come back here so that you get a better grasp on what we're talking about. Brain hardware and software. So the hardware is of the brain center is the memory storage and sensory input. The Ajna sensor is the processor where the data is compared. Consciousness is in essence a software upgrade. Regardless of the desire for awareness, the potential may not be there in the hardware. So if the brain isn't nourished properly, if the body isn't nourished properly, the potential may not be there for a new software upgrade to happen. So for example, like Apple computers, also lots of PCs, with the next upgrade of Windows or the next upgrade of the Apple software, sometimes the hardware doesn't have the capacity to take that. So as long as the brain and the body system are being nourished properly, then we can enhance and upgrade our consciousness potential. Software, the brain, the mind is constantly interpreting the experience, and it doesn't need to be a real experience at all. The mind thinks it is omniscient. So this is where our imagination comes in. Our imagination, we can create thoughts in our mind that actually create a physical reaction in our body. We do that all the time. We worry about the future, which then causes reactions in the body. We regret the past, which then causes reactions in the body. And when we're present in the now and we're nourishing the physical body properly, things can change. PHS attunes the vehicle to its uniqueness, okay? So when you go through the PHS, the tone provides our differentiated sense to take the world in around us. Mine is feeling. Yours might be smell, taste, outer vision, inner vision, touch. Tone is the source of our sensory apparatus and memory storage capacity. So how we input and catalog our experiences. So the frequency within the design crystal, which is called the tone, is the driving force for our differentiated body experience. Tone is derived from our design sun earth substructure. Okay, so I have feeling. When I am out and about in the world, when I am consuming a YouTube video, it has to have the correct feeling to it. If it doesn't have the correct feeling, I'm out. I'm gone. I got to move out of there because I know that it is not the correct connection for me. This allows me to have this differentiated cognitive potential. And when I nourish my body correctly, what I notice is that I have better teachers come into my life. I have better mentors come into my life. I have higher quality friends come into my life. I connect with magical people. The information flow is different. If my body is inflamed or really hot, because I'm a cold PHS, I notice that the exact opposite is true. So, of course, if you go back to the primary health system, this is what we're talking about here: tone, color, and the variable. Okay. Is it left? Is it right? If it is left, it's a very active body. If it's right, it's a very passive body. Active bodies and brains require more food intake than a passive body. So we look here at the tone. Okay. And again, that's all in the primary health system as well. So active. This is focused. It's specific memory storage and does not need to process all the information coming in. So these are the children, okay? These are the children that require testing. What did you learn today? What didn't you learn today? Because once you test them, then you understand what they missed. Because there's a lot of neuroactivity happening, and it requires food and or hot liquids to restore the brain from fatigue. So due to focusing and paying attention span may be shorter, okay? So these children, one of the things that some of the schools do now is actually put little, like they're like little bicycle things underneath the desk so that the active body can be moving. It needs to study very strategically because they're always going to miss parts of the information. So what's going to be on the test? And let's just focus in on what's going to be on the test. That's what these children need. It needs a context to focus because it can't apply all the information at all times. It has to have a focus. Now, right? This is the wide spectrum. This is me. So I have this massive data storage. Okay. Absorbing all of the information. So my filing cabinet in my brain, in my storage unit, it's like I have stuff everywhere. Okay. Especially on my desk in my office. Now, I also have some parts right or left. So I do have a filing system for our businesses to keep that in order. But the information that I have is all over my desk. So very low neural activity, takes it all in like a sponge, builds a vast memory library. Like I have so much information, it's crazy. Extraordinary cognition that we don't entirely grasp right now. It's our future mutation. Okay, so we're moving to a quadrate reality. So like my husband is left. When he walks into my office, he's like, oh my God, how do you find anything in here? So it's an extraordinary cognition, okay? Because we don't really understand it yet. Has to be present when taking in the information and cannot study strategically. These children need to be in class. They need to be in the experience so that they can take it all in. Did a bird sing at a very moment that the teacher said a word? You know, what are they absorbing? And some of you might be homeschool parents as well that are in here. So they need to be asked for information. The best study process is actually teach what you learned. Teach what you learned. That's what I do. Teach what I learned. Where on the other hand, the left, it's all about test them. These kids are excellent at being tested because they can study strategically and they can be tested. So what's on the test? Let's just study that and let's pass the test. These children, tests are not good for them. Actually, if the teacher was to say, okay, teach me what you got out of the class, totally different. If there was two different quote unquote testing methodologies, totally different. And again, I know that the current education system is going to fall apart, and there's so many more kids being homeschooled because of this exact thing, because we're changing. And it's more experiential for the right brain body than it is strategic and focusing. So it's all shifting, and you guys are on the forefront of the knowledge so that you can enhance families in your neighborhood. Now let's talk about sleep. So we need time away from the auras of others to come back to our own true self and to nourish it with rest. When we sleep with other people or animals, we are taking in an energy and being conditioned through our open centers. So sleeping in our own aura is the first step to transforming along the way to our strategy and authority. You can't establish your uniqueness if you don't give your aura the space it deserves. So each type has specific sleep needs for proper rejuvenation. So every individual, every child has their own aura type according to human design, and that aura type actually has a particular way that it needs to rest and sleep. Infants. So the mother isn't going to be able to sleep alone for the probably 18 months, 9 months of being pregnant and 9 to 12 months while, nursing and weaning the baby. So until the baby is weaned, it is easier on the mother to sleep with the baby during the night or near the baby. Now, again, there's these things called SIDS, and I get it. So do what you need in your family. But until the baby is weaned, it's easier on the mother to be near that child. So many mothers are nursing as a way to put their baby back to sleep. And this can become an issue when the baby begins to eat solid food and not nurse at bedtime. So mom and baby can learn some new skills. So bedtime in the open sacral. Open sacral beings need to get sacral frequency out of their systems before they go to bed. So one of the things Ross said was for projectors, lay horizontally. Imagine a waterfall just cleansing the sacral center. So you can have your children do this at bedtime. Okay. Bedtime can be a battlefield if the parent is trying to get the open sacral center to sleep before they are relaxed. So read them a story on the couch or in the living room, then send them out of your aura to relax in their own space. So once they have their own space and they can lay down horizontally, reinforce the process. And this isn't just projectors. Our manifestors and our reflectors can do this, but they're not quote unquote absorbing as much as a projector child because of their aura type. But lay down horizontally and imagine that waterfall cleansing the sacral center. So similar to the open sacral rest period, the generator has an exhaustion phase, slowly slowing down and slowing down. Let them do until they fall over. It is not about getting into bed. It is about the exhaustion phase. They will find their proper exhaustion rhythm. So what I find is so interesting is parents of generators want to give them a bedtime. I know it's hard. We want to do that, right? But make sure your child starts to understand their own exhaustion phase. So these children need exercise, even as babies, in order to exhaust so that they can go to sleep. That's why a lot of generator children and manifesting generator children, they cry a lot. They get really upset at sleep time because they actually haven't used up their energy field. So physical contact and motivated physical activities, things that require them to exert themselves are beneficial. So generators require physical stimulation to sleep deeply, yet they won't sleep as long as other types. It is physically satisfying for generators to go to sleep exhausted. Now, this is just the generator type, okay? Sleep is a time when the sacral cleans out and needs to fully recharge, okay? It's like a rechargeable battery. So parents of generators, like just the generator type, allow your child to be exhausted, just like these children. They played until poof, they fell over, until they were tired. Manifesting generator, there's a little bit of a difference here, okay? I know this because this is who I am. So as a manifesting generator, I go to bed and I read. I expend that little bit of energy at the end of my day so that I can then fall asleep. And at times I will watch TV as well, which I know isn't good because of the blue light. I get that. Again, that's conditioning. I don't know. Does it hurt me? I have no idea. I don't think it does. So generators, exhausted. Manifesting generators, almost to that point of exhaustion. They have a little bit left. Have them go into their bedroom. Maybe they take their teddy bear or a doll into bed with them and do some imagination work at the end of the day so that they can actually then fall asleep, expending that energy. Manifestor children, these children need to be alone in their room, in their own space, peaceful space. As a baby, this is an infant that should never be disturbed when they're sleeping. Leave them in peace. Manifestor children need to relax before they go to sleep. Leave them alone to go to sleep on their own. Let them set their own sleep pattern in their room and they can fall asleep, playing on the floor and then move them. Manifestors don't need a lot of activity, but they do need a space to play by themselves. They love their own rooms as it nurtures their identity and their space, okay? They want to be free from the influences of other. And now our projectors, these children need to be taught bedtime rituals and will enjoy bedtime as a routine process of relaxation. Again, remember, something that is so important. Systems are important for projectors. So, a process is important for projectors. So projector children need to relax before they are tired. They need the benefit of bedtime stories, music, special lighting, blankets, cultivating the sleep environment, It can be deeply beneficial to the projector. Again, all things that help them, release that sacral energy, the sacral energy that they soaked up from everybody else all day. They can release it through music, through, special lighting, through soft, beautiful blankets. In households with energy types, it is easy to expect projector children to keep up, but they can't. I've seen this a lot in families where they have projector children and they have generator children, and those projector children are exhausted. So they need more naps, they need more breaks, recognition for small achievements. Projector children do not benefit from playing and sleeping in the same space. They don't. Have the bed be the bed, have the playroom be the playroom, and try to keep them as separate as possible. Okay. Reflector children, they need to be allowed to fall asleep naturally, to relax before they are exhausted. These children, like projectors, need to be in bed, not just to sleep, but to relax in their own aura. Because of their lunar cycle, these children cannot have a specific bedtime. They're going to have high energy some days and low energy other days. Due to the erratic nature of their sleep, understanding this children's lunar cycle can help the parents understand the reflector child's sleep needs. So again, have all your parents, if this is you and you're a parent and you're in this, each child is different. Allow that to be the truth. Okay, now that we've covered sleep, we're going to move into how to start leaning into the teaching of the strategy for these children. So manifestor children go from anger to peace. So manifestors are born takers. I want, I need, I take, straight from the womb. Parents are angry. They feel they have to control all that taking. So this is just how they are. Manifestor children are designed to be in their own bubble. And they have this innate sense that, like, again, that they're more indestructible and they can take and they can have and they can do what they choose to do. But again, they're most likely making decisions from that angry space. So parents cannot allow the manifestor child to take without asking. Ask first, don't take is the parent's theme, okay? Asking permission is not in this child's nature, and they will be angry until they are old enough to appreciate the advantages this strategy brings to them. And here's why. Because they have this closed and repelling aura. Okay, so they're closed off, including to their parents. They learn best in self-chosen type of learning environments. And I know this sounds like, how can you do it all? How can you, allow, if you got a household with different children in it, how do you raise them differently? Well, lean into it and trust your own inner authority to do that. So encourage them to study on their own, have different hobbies and interests, and they get to do things alone. They're in a self-contained bubble. They are in a self-contained bubble. And these children feel the most alone out of all the children because there is this repelling aura. Okay, so it's closed, it's repelling. They feel alone inside of it. So birth to weaning, not here to be influenced by anyone. Don't disturb this baby. Don't wake them up to feed them. Don't do those things. Don't disrupt their peace. From ages up to 7, get them to ask first. Don't take. What this allows this child to start to learn is it's not only about asking permission, but it's about learning how to inform, because the manifestor is about information. Okay. So what this does is it begins to nourish this space inside of them for them to learn how to inform. What are you doing next? So from 7 to 14, self-chosen learning environments that respect their need for non-interference. These children need non-interference. They need to be able to be creative and do what they're doing inside of their own bubble. 14 plus has to find a social world that doesn't demand that they fit in because they're different. So the fine line between asking and informing has to be an experiment between parent and teen. So So some examples. The manifestor child just goes with their friends at the end of school and the parent doesn't know where they are. The best way to rectify that is to have conversations to the manifestor child saying, listen, I love you, right? Your safety is my priority. And I know you feel safe, you feel like you can do it, you want to do it, so you go do it. However, I need to have some information and be able to decide whether or not that is correct for you to be doing until you're of age to make those decisions on your own. So having the manifestor child lean into the information piece. So, me and, let's just say you have a son that's a manifestor child, could be a daughter, either one. And they want to go play with their friends after school at the playground. But the playground is like, let's say you're not out in the country like I am. Let's say it is 3 blocks away from home. And, they come back from school, which is only a block away, and they want to go to this playground that's 3 blocks away. Well, you want information. Where is the playground? Who are you going with? Will there be any parent supervision, right? Do you know the parents of the children that they're going with? Who knows a safety plan? So if something goes wrong, who's phoning what? How do you get help if there's something that needs to get help with? So these are all little things. What it does is it helps your manifestor child learn to see the impact that they're making in the world. So they just go and there's no confirmation or permission asked or information to the parent. What impact is that? Well, the parent goes into worry, stress, anxiety. Now, all of a sudden, now they understand their impact. But if they actually inform and converse and ask for permission, now the parent isn't in that situation. Now they're in a place where, okay, they know, they have some certainty, there's some safety there. And it's not about controlling the child, but it's about the child learning that by asking permission and providing the information, now they've shifted their impact from a place of anger to a place of peace. Everybody's in a peaceful state. So out of all the children, I would say that the manifestor child is the one that needs the most, I don't want to say attention, but the most parenting, guidance, so that as they move forward in life, that they learn how to create that little bit of information so that people don't get in their way, so that people aren't interfering, because it's all about non-interference. Generator, frustration, dissatisfaction. So this is hard for parents to ask generators to do things and not just tell them. Parents are frustrated, they feel they have to nag and explode to get things done. So the generator child, could you do this? Can you do that? Over and over and over again from the parent. Get them to understand their sacral voice. Don't accept that verbal yes or no from these children. Like, get them to tap into Parents learn to ask the manifesting generator, did you forget a step? Is there something that you might have left out? Because manifesting generators have a tendency, that's who I am, to skip steps. I do that often. I still do that. And I don't know how old I am. I think I'm 47. So leaning into that non-verbal language is so important when you're teaching the generator child how to begin to trust their strategy. Okay. I can't be told what to do. Ask me, but don't tell me. So the aura is open and enveloping. So to everyone, and it cannot keep anyone out. It just can't. Very different from the manifestor child. Generators, manifesting generators, totally different aura. They're enveloping all the time. So when we're asked rather than told, generators learn to choose what is correct for them by engaging their sacral energy, okay? Rather than being a frustrated slave. learns best in self-paced type learning environments, and encourage them to get plenty of physical stimulation, healthy and satisfying. That's where they want to be. They want to be in the space where they are satisfied and they're moving through life in a satisfied manner. We've all encountered, including myself, because I am one, a frustrated generator, a manifesting generator, and they are like bulldozers, right? They get very frustrated and stomp through life. Now, when we're in that space of satisfaction, totally different story. Then all of a sudden there's a different frequency that we're enveloping people with, and they're more apt to ask us because that energy is juicy. They want to work with it. They're like, yeah, I want to work with it. So instead of telling these children, ask them. So birth to weaning, hold out the toy or food and wait for their response. This is the high energy baby. Encourage them to make their sounds. Don't push the man gen to skip developmental steps like crawling. Don't go right from, nothing to walking. 7 to 14, a self-paced learning environment that respects their own speed. Enough is a sacral response. So the 14 plus, development of sexual roles and identity will look for satisfaction. Let them be quitters. Let them learn what is worth putting their energy into. So this is so important. Okay, this is my husband's parents. His father had lived in the exact same house, had the exact same job for like 50 years. Okay, great. And lived in the exact same house for, 70 years, approximately 65 years, 65 years, and had the same job for 50 years. Sorry. So that type of, they didn't quit. They got something and they stuck with it. That's an old paradigm. Generators, manifesting generators, were designed to really tap into, is our energy being used well or not? Let them be quitters. That's all there is. Let them be quitters. Okay? Because not every decision means that they have to be locked into that decision forever. It's about trusting the energy flow. So manifestor parents, okay, they can feel that they never truly connect with their child due to their aura, likely to give their child a lot of peace and quiet, regardless of the child's actual needs, okay? Can anger easily, if not getting enough space for themselves. So if you're a manifestor child, you or a parent, you need to have your own space, okay? You never really truly connect. So do as I do can become an expectation for whatever child, okay? You don't want to do that. You don't want to have expectations on your children. So the parent has to learn to inform the child to understand the impact they have on their children. And generator parents are here to know themselves, okay? So it can feel very self-absorbing. So here we have a manifestor parent that feels like there's no connection with their young one. A young one can't bust into their energy field. So they're wondering, does that parent love me? Do they really love me? And generators, for the most part, are quite, because they're concerned about who I am, or who am I? Who am I, right? Who am I? So they get very self-absorbed. So easily frustrated by trying to make things happen for their children. To be that super parent, do as I do, can become the expectation that the child will have as much energy as they have. So if a generator is, dealing with a manifestor, projector, or reflector child, they expect the same expectations. Not true. So parent has to learn to not initiate all the time. When they do initiate, they need someone to ask them so that they can hear their own sacral response. because what they're mentally initiating may not be correct. And we're going to go over all the conversation types in another few slides here. So generator parents with generator children can get into the same rhythm of exhaustion if they keep the child physically close. Everybody needs space. Everybody needs to be away from everyone else's aura and bust through that, or bust away from that, okay? So that you can regenerate your own sacral, so that the child can do what they need to do for their physical bodies. So generator parents, just know that there's times where your self-absorption, the child feels like, oh, they don't care about me. They're just absorbed in their own thing. It's true. Manifestor parents. Sometimes you just can't connect with your child. And it's not sometimes, it's always. There's no true aura connection, energy connection, because the energy type is always repelling. And it's okay. It's all about communication and having this conversation. Okay? Relax with the expectations. When you're a parent, that is so, so important. Projector children, from bitterness to success. Projectors are born without a system in place. They have to learn a system. So it didn't want to be here, or I didn't want to be here. No one invited me. How long do I have to do this? Parents are bitter. They feel they have to push them to do and to succeed. Okay. This is where I see this with so many projector children. The parents are constantly pushing these children to be generators, and these poor little people are so exhausted. All right, so teaching them strategy. Parents have to explain everything to this child, show them everything, teach them everything, introduce them to the world, stimulate their intelligence. Recognize and invite is the parent's theme. Recognize your child, right? Recognize the good and the bad. So recognize when they have a tantrum. Recognize when they're exhausted, or recognize when they're in that success. Recognize when they are really stepping into that, advisory role, because they're here to help their little friends. That's what they do. Invitation is the only way to reach this child, so don't push them towards energy. So here's an example, okay? My friend has a projector son, and she would constantly be on this kid to clean up his room. Constantly be on him to clean up his room. And one day he asked her, Mom, can you just come sit in my bedroom while I clean it up? And she did. And the paradigm shifted. So anytime from that space forward, when the room needed to be cleaned up, she invited him to clean up his room, and then said to him, ask me when you're ready to clean it up. And that was the new shift that happened. Her sacral energy would just go sit on the bed or in his chair in the desk. They would talk, and he would clean it all up. So recognize that they need to have a sacral connection when there's things that need to be accomplished. Not all the time, okay? They still have energy. And, invite them to ask you. Invite them to ask you to come in and help them. So, and you as a parent, invite them. Hey, I'm going to be home. I can do homework with you. So if you want to, if you're ready to do that homework, I invite you to the dining room table and let's really rock this out. Okay, great. So I'm not here to do, but to be. These children are beers. So I just talked to you about doing, right? Cleaning room, doing homework. These children are so much about being. So the aura is narrow and focused and spotlighted. This focus can be uncomfortable when it isn't invited. So again, that absorbing energy, they tap into the other person. And if there was no invitation there, it can feel uncomfortable. Learns best in some systematic, structured environments. Encourage them through recognition of who they are, not what they do. So look at the strengths of your projector child. Get to know those strengths really well. And when those strengths are being invited from their friends, from their teachers, from their network, from their coworkers as they grow up and get jobs outside of the home, look at that, and then really encourage them to then also see it. Because the more they be and use their advising aspect, because that's what a projector does, the more they're going to feel recognized. Instead of, being a quote unquote slave, they can actually advise. So here's a couple things. The one projector that actually there's a couple of them and they have very similar, they're both males. They have both similar designs. And they have the solar plex and the root defined. So there's energy there. Okay. And they actually are both truck drivers. So they're actually working in a physical job and yet have that space to relax as they're driving. Now, I'm not saying that they're not paying attention because they are. Okay. And through that, what they both have been also asked to do is to move up the rank to then guide other truck drivers. So now they become the teacher, they become the guide. And then all of a sudden their role, they're more in the passenger seat and they're guiding other people along the way. So just be aware of this progressive movement. And there's a system to driving a big truck. Projectors by stage of development. Birth to weaning needs a stimulation of toys and challenges to master their motor skills, okay? Up to 7, invite them. You are invited to eat with us, okay? Use those words. I'm inviting you to the football game. I'd like to invite you into the living room and we'll watch a movie. Now all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, invitations are important to me. So has to latch on to an energy source. Almost impossible to function without a generator, which I don't agree with that. They still can function, but doing like physical, really demanding labor for them, they will require to have a generator energy around. So from 7 to 14 wants to learn, those functions and the organizational systems, and they can appreciate the education system. And then from 14 plus, we'll look for recognition in sexual roles, has to learn to assess the invitations they receive, not here to keep up with energy types. This is so critical. So, for example, we have friends and their child wants to play hockey. Guess what? He chose to be in net because it doesn't take that much physical. He's not skating up and down the ice. So even though he's participating, and in that process, he was able to move into the one space where he didn't have to overexert his energy field. Reflector children. This is from disappointment to surprise. Hard for children or parents to connect with this because they're kind of like slippery, right? There's always this shift that's happening in them too. Parents can become very disappointed. When is this baby going to talk, walk, or be, quote unquote, be normal? Because they're shifting. They're always these beautiful little souls that shift from one aspect to another. Teaching this strategy, parents learn the lunar cycle to support the ups and downs of the child. Parents have to introduce and initiate this child. Let me sample, don't demand consistency as the parent's theme. So let them just, try things and don't demand that consistency because they are not consistent beings. They cannot be on all the time. They're going to shift with the lunar cycle. So I know so many reflectors, and it's very interesting to watch. So full moon, they feel like they're right energized as the moon moves into that phase of that full moon, and then as it moves over to the phase of the new moon, they slow down a little bit in the month. They start to need a little bit more sleep, and then they gather moving towards the full moon, and they don't need as much sleep. They're kind of energized, and even though it looks like it's inconsistent, it's very consistent. There becomes this consistent 28-day cycle. So initiate this child to sample the sky, the vastness of life beyond the human world. So 28 days for any major decisions. This aura is sampling, doesn't recognize a hierarchy of samples, and never really gets connected with others. They're more in this very subjective phase where they're connecting subjectively to what the outside world shows. So when they are supported in their lunar cycle, they don't try to be consistent. Rather, they engage with the world through their sampling process. Learns best in self-paced environments, and they need to learn at their own and move at their own rhythm. Encourage them to explore the world on their own terms, not like anyone else. So birth to weaning needs a variety of people and places to sample. Up to 7, monitor their lunar cycle. Let them learn their levels and their own rhythm. They will want to be at the center of energy without engaging with it directly. So this child, maybe they want to sit right in the middle of the living room, and you got family over, and you're all there. Maybe there's games being played. They want to just be able to sample it all, see it, and encourage that. 7 to 14, self-paced learning. Observe how human beings operate. 14 plus, this is their developmental roles. They're going to look for surprise and variety. So strong drive to find their place in the world or to find the right people. And those people constantly change. That's all there is to it. Their people in their world are going to change. They are designed for that. They are designed just like the moon, shifting 28 days. They are designed to have differences in their life. So as a projector parent, you can get really overwhelmed when you have more than one child to deal with. I see so many projector moms that have 3, 4, and 5 children. Tons of them. And they get very, very overwhelmed. So if you are a projector parent, allow for help to come in. Ask people to help you if you need to. So likely to give their child a lot of recognition and stimulation, regardless of the child's actual needs, and can become bitter if not getting enough time to rest, has to learn their own limits, can be attracted to try to keep up with the energy of their children. Parent has to learn how to ask for the energy of the child, ask those questions, and then let go. The timing is to be hands-on with the energy child and then disengage from the energy child, okay? Because a parent can become very exhausted. I also know parents that do this as well. They have that generator child, sleep with them for many, many, many years. Or a projector child wants to sleep with their generator mom or dad or parent or caregiver for many years because they're constantly attached to that energy field. So if you have a projector child or a projector parent, you need to disengage from the sacral energy. So reflector parents, due to the nature of the aura, this can have difficulty trying to open up to their child all the time because, again, they're moving through this lunar cycle. Child has to learn they are available sometimes and not other times. As they experience life inconsistently, they can be perceived as not being reliable or consistent as parents. Children can fear who are they going to be today, and has to learn that the lunar cycle provides them with a relative consistency over time. Reflector parent can develop the capacity to reflect the family and well-being of that family. So here's some communications. Manifestor to manifestor, it's great to initiate that. Manifestors are also initiating all other types. Now, in saying that, it's not that anybody can't initiate, because that's not true. Everybody can initiate. But the thing is, it's to go back to that other person. So let's just give an example. Generator to generator. One generator phones the other generator. Do you want to go for lunch on Wednesday? Okay. Yeah, I can do that. Now, this generator needs to then re-ask this generator. Do you want to go for lunch on Wednesday? Actually, no, I don't. Okay. So all of a sudden, there's this back and forth response mechanism that's happening because we are all initiating. We're all going to initiate conversations. We're all going to initiate everything. That's just how it happens. We pick up the phone and phone our friend. We connect with somebody at a workshop. We reach out our hand and introduce ourselves. It's not that we cannot initiate. Now, manifestors can initiate themselves. Even if someone hasn't made eye contact or made a gesture towards them, they can go initiate, walk into somebody's aura, kind of bump into their aura and reach out their hand and initiate. But for the other types, what's important here is that as a generator, was there eye contact? Was there someone leaning towards you? Did somebody smile at the projector? Right? That's an invitation. And what happened with a reflector? Maybe they walked towards them. They initiated them. So there's no just one way. Nothing's an absolute because we're in this human soup pot with 99% of the people conditioned. So operate correctly for yourself. If you're designed to respond, if someone makes eye contact and you reach out and shake their hand and say, hey, hi, I'm so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. What's your name? And allow them to respond. If they just walk away, that's a response. So these two slides here kind of give us an example of, watching how the communication needs to be back and forth. Manifestors, they're always initiating. However, when we have a conversation with a manifestor, what is important for us to remember, again, is that informing piece. And I talked about this so much up in the other modules around manifestors. Inform them. And, I believe that I shared the example of my husband. And this is such a simple example. That's why I always go back to it. I was going to go to get the mail, and I have to drive, 10 minutes away to go get my mail. And my vehicle was in the shop, inside of our farm shop. And he had a piece of equipment in front of it, so I couldn't back out of the door, or behind it, I guess. And that piece of equipment needed to be moved in order for me to take my vehicle to town. So instead of saying, can you move that piece of equipment? What I said to him was this: I'm going to go and get the mail at 4:00 today. And I will need my vehicle. And I noticed that there's a piece of equipment there. Just so you're aware, I'm going to go at 4 because that's when I'm finished up with my clients. I'm going to go after that. So I would appreciate it if you could move that piece of equipment so that I can get my vehicle out. And how he responded, he's an ego manifestor. He said, I will do that for you. I will. That was his willpower speaking, because I had informed him what I needed, and he let me know that he would do that. So instead of asking him, can you move it, and force him to try to respond from an undefined sacral center, I informed him what I needed. And what he did was then use his willpower and his inner authority to communicate that it would get done. Okay? So this is all just, it's always a back and forth. Invitations, asking questions. The reflector needs that initiation, and initiation can look like many things. Initiation can look like, for a reflector, it can look like a question, can look like an invitation, and it can look like information. So a reflector can actually take all of that plethora and then move through its 28-day cycle and make a decision. Okay. All right, on to our next slide. Now we are moving into the inner authority. So we were chatting about strategy. Now we're moving into the inner authority, teaching children their authority. Each child comes with that unique inner authority, just like you and I. Children have a natural relationship with their inner authority. And we see this often, that children actually have a natural connection with it. The fundamental issue is that we live in this world where adults are recognized as the authority for the children. And it can be challenging to support the emerging inner authority to children due to social pressures. Parents have to be guided so that they can guide their children. So when we're teaching them, this is a quote from Ra, it is about reminding them, rewarding them for their uniqueness, providing them with the keys that are necessary for them to make decisions as themselves. Then the parent has done a great job. It's not about when do we start teaching them. It's about living the design. And out of that, you learn that there is a natural timing to these things. It isn't so much the educational things you do with your child. It is the transformation of your awareness about your child and your ability to resist the forces around you who they're not going to like what you're doing. So we want to discover the individuality. This is from 0 to 7, decisions that relate to their personal state of being. Warm, cold, hungry, not hungry, clothing, toys, play, room, space, rest. So they're learning all of this spatiality. They're learning what's hot, what's cold. When are they hungry? When are they not hungry? Okay. So decisions are all starting to relate to all of this. When they're hungry as a baby, they cry. When they're not hungry, they can rest. What clothing feels correct for them? Do they appreciate, babies like to be bundled for the first little bit so that they feel like they're still, quote unquote, squished in the womb. What toys feel correct? This is, kind of like the Montessori type learning, where it's all about touch and how do things feel, and is it correct for me to be playing with that? 7 to 14, this is where they start to discover and make decisions around activities and hobbies, friends, social life, going places, self-establishment of that PHS, self-establishment of sleep patterns, which we've learned all about that. Activities and hobbies. This is one I'm going to put a caveat on. Okay. Be aware of the peer pressure. Who is pressuring them to do things that they're not designed to do? So, for example, like our friend and their projector child, like hockey's a big thing here in Canada. So most parents want to be hockey parents. I'm not going to say all of them, but there's a lot of them that want to be hockey parents. And, pushing their child to play hockey. And maybe they want to play the guitar. So be aware of the peer pressure and the cultural aspect, because maybe culturally it is, you have to play soccer, or you're into video games as a culture, or your culture is about hockey, or your culture is about basketball, or your culture is about cricket or football, whatever that is. But maybe that isn't actually what your child wants to do. So from 14 onward, This is about their education, their relationships, their sexuality. This is self-expression, career, staying at home. So the more we nurture those decisions at a younger age, now, as they move out into the world, they can be better equipped to make better decisions. So the emotional authority, we call this emerging. And why is this emerging? Because it's moving from more of a motor function into more of an awareness and just a little bit of motor function. So emotionally defined children benefit from learning about their emotional wave. Children can become nervous about the lows of their wave and can be conditioned to try to hang on to all those highs. Again, this kind of goes back to a lot of the pharmaceutical stuff that's happening with our children and the medications that we're putting them on, trying to keep them out of that emotional wave. So do we pressure them to have reasons for the way they feel? We don't need to do that. We can encourage them to see their emotions as chemistry, and we don't have to make up any reasons. You know, if they are in a moment where they're in a low, we don't have to try to pull them out of that. Just encourage them to go into creativity, into a space where maybe they can write or cook or play Play-Doh or go into their imagination. All of those kind of things will help them recognize that in those spaces of when they kind of slow down and go into that melancholy or those lows, it's okay. So help them to explore self-expression in nonverbal, nonlinear ways. Emotional children need to have parents share their plans ahead of time, and they can't function well with spontaneity. This is something that one of my friends, her sister, has emotional children, and they woke them up one morning at 3 a.m. in the morning. And of course, these kids are like totally stunned because they're being woke up in the middle of the night. Emotional authority. And they sprung it on them that they were jumping in the car. All their bags had been packed. Mom and dad had packed everything, put everything in the car. They're jumping in the car to get to the airport to go to Disneyland. And the splenic child, totally okay. The two emotional children, it took them days before they actually felt like it was okay to be in Disneyland because they're not spontaneous. So help them understand they can change their decision if they're no longer in the mood. This is the other thing that's so important. You can be in the mood for something and you can be out of the mood for something. And it's okay to allow for that mood to shift what you're doing. And this is all, it doesn't matter what type you are. Of course, the reflector's never going to have this. But any of the other three types, pay attention to your mood. And don't let spontaneity be something that you desire in life because it's very unhealthy for you. So from 0 to infant, ask, tell, invite them more than once. Parents have to discern what requires a decision. 7 to 14, have them sleep on decisions, have them relax, take time, don't feel peer pressured. They can benefit from learning about how they arrive at emotional clarity, help them track their feelings over time so they can see how they can change. From 14 plus, encourage them to recognize the highs and lows of their wave and that it is okay to be on the low end of the wave. Life is not an attempt to stay at the high. So encourage them to go up and down. Nervousness is just this sensation that everybody gets, whether we're defined or not defined. I'm not going to say everybody, most people get very nervous about doing something new because that is where the human experiential way moves through, is the emotional center. So nervousness doesn't mean, that you can't never do it. It just means that maybe you're not ready at this moment. Or maybe it means that you're really excited and you do want to move into it and you want to try it and experience it. Okay. Sacral authority. These are the sounds. Either it has the energy to see it through to completion or not. And I'm not even going to say that I don't really like that, to completion or not. And here's why. If the energy is gone and the cycle of whatever it is isn't done, then you don't have to see it out to completion. So for example, okay, so say there's a brand new project going on and your boss asks you to be involved in it and you were engaged in it. It was a yes. But as the project went along, you notice that your energy isn't being used correctly in the project. And you have a conversation with your boss, and the project can still go on without you, and they can replace you. But it's about understanding, is my energy being used correctly or not? So it's not as though a 50-year project needs to, if you enter it in, that you have to stick with that for the whole 50 years. That's not correct. It's about trusting the sacral and knowing that when you say yes and you tap into your available energy, it will guide you, and you will get to know when enough is enough. So sacral children have a natural affinity to the sounds. And they have this sensitivity right in their genetics. Oftentimes, though, what I've been told by many, many people is that they're told, use your words instead of those grunty noises, and they stop doing that. So parents need to understand that this is a motor and it's not aware. It must be asked in order to respond, so that we know, okay, is the energy of that child being used correctly or not? So help them understand at an early age that life comes to them, that they are here to experience the satisfaction that arises when they engage in life with their sacral response. So sacral is kind of very interesting because it's like our diaphragms. So the muscle of our pelvic muscle, the diaphragm, and the transverse abdominis. So if you go, you'll notice that there's like all this activation happening in all of these diaphragms. It's very interesting to feel it. Once you see this, then you make that noise. As a sacral being, I know this so well inside of me. So asking questions, could you clean your room now? Is it possible for you to take care of this? Could you do this for me? Do you need to do this? Do you have the energy to do that? And one of the things that I always encourage people to do is ask can questions. Can you clean your room now? Can you take care of this for me? And what happens is that can question engages the sacral, because it's saying, do you have the energy for this, or do you not have the energy? Can you or can't you? So infant to 7, when they learn to speak, encourage them to continue with those sacral noises. So I see these children, mom, that tastes so good. I love this. They use those kind of noises because that is what the sacral does. It's very noisy. So from 7 to 14, help them trust that response and don't get yourself pulled off of it because of social pressure. 14 plus, help them to learn that the sacral life is built upon trust and surrender, not goals and planning. The spleen is an awareness center. So it's naturally sensitive. And it is attuned to like keeping the body safe. And that splenic center is constantly scanning like a radar. Like this is our immune system. So it's sniffing out. It's instinct, it's intuition. So it's constantly sniffing out, is this safe for me? Is this not safe for me? It's listening intently and acoustically and frequency based to the environment to know, is this safe? Is this not safe? Our intuition will say, you'll hear this little acoustic, oh, don't do that. Oh, don't go there. You're missing something here. And a lot of times we just bypass it. So parents need to understand that it doesn't have a voice. It operates in the now, and it's very spontaneous. It's a warning system. So it doesn't give a yes, no. And it can easily be overpowered by the mind because the mind's dialogue is noisier. You guys know all of this because you've already, taken all of these courses above, or these modules above. So the spleen is just like, it or you don't know it. You know it. So when it's a yes, there's just this knowing. The invitation is correct. That initiation is correct. It's a knowing. So from infant to 7, help them understand at an early age that their physical fears are important, and ask them if a decision feels safe. Because you want them to tap into that spleen, because that's what the spleen is only concerned about, is safety. It's the awareness. Will this physical body, because it's the oldest, it's the instinct within us as mammals to stay safe. This splenic awareness is only in the now. It's telling us, the decision that you made a minute ago is not the same decision that you might make at this moment. So help them identify the way that their spleen signals them. It might be different for different decisions. One invitation might feel safe, the other one doesn't feel safe. However, they were the exact same words, but it might be the tonality, it might be the frequency, it might be the body language. So how do they deal with these last minute changes with family and friends? So I see this. I actually have seen this a lot with splenic authorities. They accept an invitation. At the moment, it felt safe. And then time passes. Things go on in time. And all of a sudden, as the date of the event becomes more apparent or close, now all of a sudden, there's no more safety there because there were some other mechanisms that came in. Now the safety is no longer there. So allowing them to trust that, that decision that they made 6 months ago is not the same decision that they may make today based off of more moving components. Okay. Recognize that their fussiness about clothes, their room, their family, it's all about health. It's going to be natural for them. Encourage them to be willing to change plans if their spleen gives them that signal, regardless of social pressures. How often do we hear this? So often. People will say, I knew it. Intuitively, I knew it, but I did it anyway. And something happens. Maybe there's a car crash, or like so many things happen. So many things happen when we don't listen to our intuition. So the ego authority, this is something that I'm aware of. My husband has this. So children with defined will are built to be willful. The challenge is for them to learn how to use this power correctly, okay? It is the actual heart. So the will is here to serve the greater good, not personal desire. Learning what is arising from the mind and what is the will is critical. So the ego, as the authority of life, is all about the push to accomplish for the tribe, to be first, to be in control, to deliver services to others, to fight for the greater good. It carries the gall to go one's own way, to be able to stomach what has to be done for others, the power to fight against those who threaten the tribe, and the push for material dominance and control of the greater good. Sounds very interesting, doesn't it? But all of that is housed in this tiny little center, smallest center, 4 gates. So help them understand at an early age that tantrums are acting out of the mind's desire. Help them to recognize if their heart is in it, either what they've been invited to or are considering initiating. So we can have ego projectors and we can have ego manifestors. So is their heart in it? Is their heart in it? And know that the important piece of the ego is that it isn't about being on all the time, because the heart needs rest. Recognize as a parent that their ego power is mechanical. It's not rational. It's not mental. Free them from needing to mentally find reasons for how they compete, work, fight, push for what they feel is correct. Help them understand what it means to be of service, to work successfully, or for a sense of peace, and how differently it feels when they are bitter or angry, or when they work and help others. Ask them to check what it is that they are wanting to be recognized for or wanting to make as an impact. It is the present experience or an imagined future. So help them notice if they have their heart in the decision or not. When they reach a decision, do they feel an energy shift, a push to accomplish, or do they feel recognized? So with great power comes great responsibility. The self-authority, I like this one. It's fun. It's fun to watch it. Children with a defined G are built for self-assuredness. The challenge for them is to discover their sense of self, of direction that arises from within, to recognize their internal compass. These individuals must be invited into their decisions, and then discover through discernment if it is a correct direction for their life, if it brings a sense of self-love and self-assuredness. Help them understand at an early age that they are here to march to the beat of their own drum, to their own direction. So recognize that they will display their sense of self through their expression, their stories, their creativity, through their attraction to certain clothes, their room decor, friends, places. And self-authority speaks. It speaks. So when invited, it will speak its inner authority. When an invitation is presented, they need to be able to hear what they say. So this self-authority, ask them if the invitation is something that seems delicious to them. Is there energy in the invitation? That's so important. So one of the things that Ra has said is when we invite a projector, so say it's a different type than a projector, we need to meet that projector more than halfway. So if we're inviting them for lunch, ask them for lunch, invite them for lunch, but say, I'm willing to come pick you up. I'll pick you up and I'll drop you off. So they don't have to expend the energy. Help them begin to notice if they have a sense of direction, expression, or love in the decision or not. Nothing more important for them to be true to their own self. So recognize as a parent that their G center is mechanical. It's not rational, it's not mental, but it's where the monopole resides. Free them from needing to be mentally, to have that mental decision and try to make sense of the direction. Just let the direction be correct. Mental projectors, this is where these children, it is about talking, it's about using the sounding board, hearing their own mental processes. So mental development is a lifelong process. By encouraging their unique way of mental processing, these children will be recognized for what they can offer as outer authority to others, because that's really what they're designed for. So logical children, remind them that there are always going to be more questions to research and not everything is logical. Give them research tools. The abstract child, remind them that ideas come and go. Acting on ideas has to arise from strategy and authority. Give them stories and imagination tools. Individual knowing, remind them that they will get better and better at explaining what they know. Remind the parent that these children are quote unquote deaf to being taught. They must find their own inner knowing. So not that my husband is a mental projector, but he has the 4323. An individual knowing, you don't know it until you know it. So him and I can have a conversation about something that needs to be built on the farm. And because acoustically, it hasn't created a geometry of knowing inside of him, It isn't until sometimes it's months, sometimes it's actually years later. All of a sudden, acoustically, he can hear how to create or build this. And he comes to me and he's like, hey, let's do this and this and this. And I'm thinking to myself, we had this conversation like 6 months ago, and he couldn't visualize it. He couldn't see it, wasn't aware of it. So it didn't happen. Until he actually has the knowing, and then it can take place. So these children have different mental constructs. So allow for each child. Your child might actually have more than one of these. And as adults, we're learning from this as well. Being recognized for how beautiful the mind is and encouraging that process to be shone out into the world. Mental projectors, parents can help these children make decisions by actively listening. Not giving advice, but giving the child feedback. This is what I heard you say about that. Is it correct? This is how you are thinking about this. Is this how you're thinking about this? So has it changed since the last time we talked? Is it changing as you speak? Help the child clarify their own mental process. Not, you don't expect continuity. Expect them to explore and change their mind about things. And again, it's not about mental decision making. This is about having them hear their own mental process and converse this process so that they can get reflection back from their sounding board, so that they can actually hear if how they're processing a decision is correct from them. And very important for mental projectors, that they actually understand their PHS and the tone of the Sun-Earth, design Sun-Earth. So their cognitive ability. So how are they using their cognition? So as they have these conversations, what do they feel about it if they are a fifth tone? What do they visualize about it if they are a third or fourth tone? What do they taste when they talk about it if they're a second tone? What do they smell if they're a first tone? How do they, imagine themselves touching it if they are a sixth tone? Reflectors. Learning to make decisions through the lunar cycle is a long-term process of skill development. Parents can support reflector children by learning their child's lunar cycle. This is so important. So observe the changes. Don't expect like quote unquote consistency day by day, but more like a larger cycle of consistency, of continuity, cycle by cycle. So they need to talk about the decision. They need to move through the cycle of the decision. So encourage the child to notice their own lunar patterns. Okay. And parents can help these children make decisions, again, by active listening. Again, not giving advice, but leaning into asking them those questions. So what has changed? Get them to really notice, oh, well, 3 weeks ago, it felt like a good idea, but today it doesn't. Okay, so let's lean into that. What happened over those 3 weeks? So that you get them in tune with their larger cycle. Reflector children will explore the decisions from different viewpoints. So expect them to try on aspects of the decision and change their mind. As they mature, having peers and other adults who can provide feedback will become important to them. Reflector children and mental projector children, having like their environment and the people around them are always going to be the key to their best decision making. Now we're going to have a conversation around really developing that design, that form, and really helping nurture the form. Again, it always goes through PHS, and then we really nurture them to understand their own strategy and their type. And then we encourage them to really go deeper into their own authority. And then we nourish it through sleep. And now we nourish it through supporting the design profile, the role that their form is here to live out. The body is what lives a life, right? We're in this material vehicle. So our usual orientation to profile is from the form or their personality side, who we think we are. However, it's a body that actually lives a life. So if we can help the parent pay attention to the profile for their child's body, they can learn a lot about how the child is designed to meet life, how they are designed to take life in. Nurturing the body through profile respects and honors the unique life that the child is here to live. So type links up to the profile. Projectors will display the same role differently than a reflector, manifestor, or generator. Aura has a profound effect upon how the body interacts with the life. So parents meet their child's body immediately at birth. Maturation of the personality is a 50-year plus developmental process. So the physical body is here immediately. The intelligence of the physical body is at birth. Our personality actually doesn't truly step into itself until it's after 50. So first line, the investigator body. What to investigate? These children want to, they begin to investigate with their fears. These children come into life with enormous fears. They have to have a secure foundation so that they can, continue to investigate. Don't bully them or discount their fears. Help them determine what to investigate. Anything that scares them, anything that they feel insecure about. What do they feel insecure about? Help them learn how to investigate, research, and experiment. Research books, videos, instructions, experimentation, step by step, what happens. So this is the body. This is the 5-1, the 4-1. And this first line body needs to investigate. So the materiality of it needs to feel secure. So if they don't feel secure, this body doesn't have a solid foundation to operate from. Second line, the hermit body. These children have to learn discernment, learning to recognize just right is a process of being picky, fussy, and hard to please. This is my husband's body. So I know this one very well. He's very fussy on what he eats. He's very fussy about what he puts on his body. He's very fussy about his environment. So these children come into this life with barriers. They naturally block off everything that isn't exactly correct and only allow for that one thing, that catalyst that will unlock their natural gifts. Don't punish them for being picky or ridicule them for not going along to get along. And, especially if this is a manifestor body, that's very difficult. They have to honor their fussiness as it is their natural protection. They aren't entirely closed off, just closed off to what isn't correct for them. The second line child carries physical weakness, one physical weak point that can be penetrated, and disease or illness can come out of anywhere. Okay. So one of the things Ra indicated was these bodies have a tendency to take in a dis-ease, and it can be dormant in their physical body for a very long time. And then out of the blue, they can all of a sudden, this thing that was residing inside of them can come out of nowhere as they age, okay? Because that's a part of the immune system. The second line is a part of the immune system. First line is a part of the immune system. Now here, we're moving actually up to what we call the ajna awareness in the third line. So what did I discover? That's what the third line body wants to know. I'm a third line body. So these children come into life accident prone. They have to make mistakes. life literally has to bump into them. Don't punish them for spilling food, knocking into tables, taking things apart to see how they work. They have to discover what happens when they bump into the wrong things. They are here to learn what does not work in order to discover what does work. There is a natural resilience built into the third body. It is physically built for bumping into, for learning through trial and error. They have an adaptive sense of discovery that needs to be nurtured in these children. Okay. So their physical bodies actually can take the bumps and bruises way easier than any other body. So this is when we get to the 6th line. If there is, for example, a 6-2, and in their 3rd line cycle, in that personality, they will notice their bodies actually take quite a bumping into, because, and they quote unquote break easier, because their physical bodies actually were not designed for that 3rd line life. 3rd line people, there's more of a resilience because it's just natural inside of them. So let's look at the 4th line, this opportunist body. Who's in my network? These children require benefactors who will invest in them with no strings attached. I see this all the time. I can't even tell you how many times I see 4th line beings literally get things just given to them. People pay for things because it's about who's investing in me. Those children come into life with influence on their networks. It's not something they do, it's just part of who they are. They are physical vectors for their network. So every cold, flu, social disease, they will get it, and they're going to pass it on to everyone that they come into contact with. A healthy network has a quid pro quo mutual benefit. These children can be exhausted, burned out, fatigued from being in the wrong network. So they are reluctant to leave a network until they find a new one. I watch this, like I watch these people because I'm a 1-3. I naturally attract 4-6s. I naturally attract them, and I get it. That's the personality side, and I'm talking about the body here. But I watch these 4th line beings, and people invest in them all the time. They pick up every cold. Okay. So that's what they're designed for, and they're designed to influence. So it helps that that 1st line body get a solid foundation by introducing it to the cold and flus, because 1st and 4th, those are the harmonics. And now all of a sudden that harmonic, so it goes out and gets the different viruses and bacteria and brings it back so that the solid foundation can build an immunity around it. Very interesting how this all works. 5th line. What projections can I tolerate? These children need to learn that they carry a projection field around them, that everyone has expectations of who they are and could become. They are not here to fulfill any of them. None of them. These children come into life with a seductive aura. I see this, 3-5s. I see this all the time. They have such seductive bodies. They will seduce you. Instagram is filled with 5th line bodies. They are seducing you with the materialism of their body, of their cars, of their airplanes, their their land, their farms, or whatever it is. They're seducing you with that materialism. They're seducing you with the form principle. They love their bodies, and they seduce with their bodies so much. They're seen as this perfect child, the angel baby, the savior of the family, the one who will achieve great things. The dilemma of the body that gives off a positive projection field that no one sees them clearly. Parents need to learn that they can't trust their own eyes and how this child feels to them for determining their child's health and well-being. So This seductive body doesn't, like, it might project out that it's super healthy, and it's not. I've seen that often. That it projects out this health and wellness, and yet the physical body is not that. Or it projects outward that the physical body is not healthy, but actually going through all the tests, the physical body is super healthy. Very, very interesting. All right, 6th line. What did I do now? This is the role model body. This is the prototypical 9-centered form, and their distinct phases in life often have deeply defined demarcations. From birth to age 30, it is deeply vulnerable time for this body, okay? As the body is going through a trial and error, accident-prone phase, but they don't have the resilience of the 3rd line, kind of like I was talking about in the 3rd line. These children come into this life without a safety net in place. They can be clumsy and weak, physically competent, or they can seem physically competent beyond their years. It depends upon their mutation. So whatever ailments or physical illnesses come into contact when they're in this 3rd line phase, a lot of times comes and haunts them back in their Chiron phase. So after they've got off the roof. So these are the children that you want to watch that happen as well. 2nd line is the same thing. They can come into contact, and that ailment can stay dormant inside of them for a very long time and then comes out because it quote unquote hermits and comes out at a different date. The same thing can happen here with the 6th line body. All right, on to the next phase. Now we're going to look at the personality development, of the child. Now remember, this is a 50-year process. So what you're doing is nurturing the physical body as they are children in your care from 0 to 30, so that energetic of the physical body, and then they can move into the correct environment, put their physical bodies in the correct environment at the age of 30. And then up until the age of 50, that's when they really develop their perspective. And then from 50 plus, this is where we develop our correct motivation. So personality is who we think we are, not the sum of the being, okay? Personality is for others. That's it. Crazy, but true. So our minds are actually for other people. Our view is for other people. It's our physical body that is for us. And our environment that we put our physical body is for us. This is where our outer authority happens, is the personality. So it's to express one's unique way of translating and conceptualizing our own life experience. That's what becomes the outer authority. So parents need to learn that outer authority is only for others. So when asked, when it is correct, it is never for running the life. Never is. The mind is always for other people. Sounds crazy, true. So we have right angle, juxtaposition, left angle. We are born into these incarnations, and there's a geometry that we are all designed to be on. Right angle cross, this is the personal destiny profile. These are, the personal destiny. This life is for their own unique experience and exploration. Others may be a part of their life, but their interest is to their own experience of interactions with others. Nothing of what they do, okay? Well, nothing what they're here to do or be has to do with anyone else. This life is for them. These children can be deeply introspective and self-engaged. They aren't designed to meet the parents' expectations. Very interesting to listen to and hear that. So if they have a first-line investigator personality, how are we going to nourish that? They will begin as insecure personalities as they learn to investigate their mental fears They will begin to develop their foundation. When they know something deeply, they will be relaxed. They are doing their investigation for themselves because their awareness frequency demands it. Movement of the personality is from weakness to strength. There will be a lifelong, ongoing, natural movement from weakness to strength. Parents need to nurture this child's personality slowly, so the strengths emerge as natural accomplishments. Parents need to provide or to avoid putting them down for their weaknesses. And there's a vast majority of first line minds are actually 1-3s. Like there's statistics, and the vast majority of them are. So if they make a mistake, the physical body, okay, 1-3s designed to make mistakes, they are reprimanded so deeply, and that first line mind can take on that reprimand. And that person's, reprimanding can play out in that little kid's mind forever. So one thing that's so important, don't lie to your child. Any kind of lie is the most damaging thing that you can do. So, if I can be secure in myself, then anything becomes possible. But we reprimand these first lines, or we tell them untruths. And, not that I'm opposed to imagination, but the whole Santa Claus fantasy, the Easter Bunny fantasy, these are all lies. They're lies. And it can damage our children. Now, again, you can believe whatever you need to believe. I'm totally okay with that. My beliefs don't have to be your beliefs, and your beliefs don't have to be my beliefs for me to know my truth. As a first line mind, this was something that I investigated immediately. Like, I knew that Santa was not real. Like, I don't remember the exact moment that I knew that, but I knew that as a very young child. I knew that whole thing was a lie. I knew it. So, second line, personality. This personality carries an intelligent readiness for the unknown. Shows on the surface as the natural, as the talented one. So, deeply curious personality. Can seem shy or withdrawn at times as they reach for what they don't know to realize something else, the intangible. So the movement of the personality is from advanced to withdraw, shy to bold. There will be a lifelong movement between advance and withdrawal. Parents need to encourage them to trust their body's inner authority, that exactly the right call, that right catalyst is important to wait for. Parents need to avoid putting them down for their shyness. It is a part of their natural gifts. Their personality is not for everyone. So don't pressure your child to perform to what you think is their potential. Let them know the right call and be engaged with the right call. Third line. This is an error-prone personality that mentally bumps into information, people, situations in order to make discoveries and develop an expression of change and adaptability. As children, they become paranoid or apathetic about making mental mistakes, need to be encouraged about the trial and error, inventiveness, asking about their discoveries. Movement of the personality is from open to closed, bonds made, bonds broken. There will be lifelong movement between open and closed. Parents need to avoid putting them down for their mistakes. Mistakes lead to the discovery of what does not work in order to eventually express what they discover does work, if it is a part of their bond. So, message to parents: celebrate this child's explorations and discovery, which requires mental mistakes. Here, when we look at the fourth line personalities tend to be in a relationship with the other, but for their own experience in life. They are here to externalize and mutually benefit their network. The quid pro quo is essential to their healthy expression. This is a child that needs to secure a secure platform to network from, as again, they're in harmonics with the first line, and to take in the world. So it can really crash if their platform isn't correct. So it needs to be with friends first, learning through their relationships, help them learn that friendship is not a hierarchy. There's no besties. I see this often, quote unquote, no besties. Everybody's like this equal friendship. Movement of the personality is from kindness to meanness, confidant or not. There will be lifelong, ongoing natural movement between kindness and meanness. Parents need to avoid challenging what they tell you. If the parent reacts, they will only tell incomplete stories. Again, first line. First line, don't like lies. Okay. So first line and fourth line, parents need to avoid challenging what they tell you because they are talking. They are just talking. They're this opportunist. They went out, they explored. They're out there informing. They're out there influencing, I guess is the word I want to use, their network. So become this child's friend. Teach them as a confidant. Okay. Don't tell their secrets. That's the other important thing. Don't tell their secrets. If this child comes and talks to you, do not tell their secrets. Be a confidant. Hold their information as a confidant. Now we have the juxtaposition, the 4-1. So they are neither personal nor transpersonal. Their fulfillment in life is through their very fixed and narrow life. They have a personality that can bridge for others while their body is deeply engaged in a specific investigation. The difficulty arises when the parent tries to broaden this child's interest, tries to make sure that they are a well-rounded personality. This child is here to provide influence in their fixed way, not in a broad way. Parents need to become relaxed about the almost obsessive nature of this child. Now we have transpersonal. These are the ones that go out into the world. They fulfill life through connections with others. So these are children whose life depends upon other people to provide their experiences. Others may or may not make up a large part of their life, but their interactions with others will shape their understanding and expression of life. It's so fun to watch the 5-1s, the 5-2s, the 6-2s, these 6 series. It's so fun to watch them. These children will grow up to have influence and impact on others with their expression and their personalities. Notice that their bodies are not transpersonal at all. Okay. Their bodies are very lower. They all have lower trigram bodies. What does that mean? 1, 2, and 3, solid foundation. Trial and error process to get it right. They take the unknown and they create something through curiosity and the known. That hermit body. So notice that it's not transpersonal, it's just their mind. So lots of times the mind wants to go explore and have fun and do things. The physical body then needs to come back, rest, take some time alone, and be in that space. So the 5th line personality, they have to find what they're actually absolutely sure of within and build their reputation in practical ways. They are not here to fulfill anyone's expectations. This child can become lost in trying to fulfill the expectations of others or react against others due to all the expectations placed upon them. I share this story often. Ra was a 5-1, and this is what he said often. He when he first started teaching design, he used to get so angry because there was all these expectations of his students until he really leaned deeper into his 5th line personality. And again, he still had to go through the 7-year cycles to decondition. So as he was walking through this material, he was deconditioning every 7-year cycle and learning something more. And what he began to realize is that when he just pulled back and watched what the expectations were. First, they were telling him exactly what they wanted him to be teaching them. That was a huge aha for him. Then he recognized that everybody saw him differently. They each had their own expectation. And then he could just giggle about it and go, okay, I don't need to try to fulfill everybody's expectations. Those expectations will be fulfilled just by me showing up and sharing the practicality that I need to share. So the movement is from selfishness to selflessness. The quality of universalizing arises from selflessness. When selflessness is dominant, the universalizing is held onto and can lead to paranoia. When selfishness is dominant, can lead to paranoia, self-deprecation, and loss of reputation. So they are selfless. They teach. They're the messenger. They just bring it. They have to bring it. So parents need to avoid comparing this child to others and avoid holding up examples of children who would fulfill their parental expectations. So as a parent, you cannot see your child clearly. Stop trying to get them to become who you think they should be. They take concepts and they create a universal understanding of them. That's what universalization means. So, for example, everybody pretty much universally understands the feeling of guilt. We understand the feeling of shame. We understand the feeling of nervousness. Those are all universalizations. So practically, what this heretic does is comes out and speaks to the message so that it can become universalized. So when Ra downloaded this information as a 5-1, he became the messenger for this. And as the messenger, what happens is now all of a sudden there's a universalization. There's thousands of people being introduced to human design every day, versus when he started, there was one person trying to get this message out. And he was teaching it to 2 people, then 3 people, then 4 people. But then those people went along and taught it to other people. Now the universalization begins to happen. 6th line, here to be the role model of their differentiated, unique life. It's not for others, but for themselves. Their first 29 years is like a pre-birth, as their mental viewpoint isn't set yet. Extremely fragile and the most mutative of all personalities. These children must understand that life is not going to be easy. That a lot will go wrong. They are living a 3rd line profile, but without the natural, resilience mentally. So they move from open to closed. These children naturally express open to close, depending upon the bond. This movement will mature into sympathy and apathy as an adult. Parents need to avoid putting down this child for mental mistakes. So when I say here, the differentiated life is not for others, but for themselves, this is where we're moving to. We're moving, like everything's moving to this quad right. And really that quad right is the highest expression of each hexagram as well. So it's like this 6-line process. So we learn to point out transitions. Okay, as parents, learn to point out transitions so that they can become good at life's transitions and not get ahead of their body's decision making. So 6 lines, they are role models. But again, let's think about this as personality. It matures after 50. We see these people really mature in that role model activity after the age of 50. We watch that take place. So transitions in life, this is, the shoreline. what is the transition? What's the transition that's coming? So we can look at this even when we look at the seasons of the planet, of our Earth plane. Winter to, or fall to winter, winter to spring, spring to summer. Help these children understand, right? So they move from 0 to 7. This is more of an internal thing in the family. 7 to 14. Then they're branching out into their school. Then 14 to 21, right? They're moving into seeing things from other people's perspectives. And then as they go into adulthood, this is about really exploring like getting away from home and exploring different things. So there's always these transition phases, and you can just help them move through those transitions. So maybe it's death to rebirth, maybe it is divorce, all these transitionary spaces that you can really help this 6-line child be in. So we're going to now talk about the open centers, and what I want you to really understand is that you know all of this stuff already from previous modules. However, it's about the repetition and hearing it in a different way, in a different vocabulary, okay? And I'm going to go through this just so that you have it, so that you can really understand. So genetically, we are predisposed, okay, to attract what we are not. And then what the conditioned mind will torture us to think that we should be who we are not. Can torture us. So this is like this attraction to difference. On a mechanical level, this is actually what seeks, or what we seek, what we are not. Because it's perceived to be necessary for our survival. So this is really the foundation of conditioning. However, conditioning is not always bad. Conditioning has to happen. We live in a pot of soup with everybody else. So it's about then the discernment. That's why we go through decision making. The mind interprets the openness in our design as vulnerable, and it seeks the opposite to find a sense of wholeness. So every hanging gate is a receptor, which is available for conditioning. When the mind recognizes that the openness has found its complement, it wants to make a permanent connection. The mind turns having or not having the conditioning into a mental story or an internal dialogue. So interesting. And this is what happens. This is what we do. We torture ourselves, and somebody comes along and we try to make it our own, right? You are unique. You cannot be anybody else but you. And same with your children. So where we have an open gate, channel, or center in our design, we're open to conditioning. This can take place through our hanging gates, a single gate of another person, which then form a conditioned channel. And we've gone over this like a lot in previous modules, okay? It can also take place by the presence of an entirely defined channel, right? We know this, the electromagnetic, the compromise, then we can look at the dominance aspect. So we're always being conditioned. And what is so important is that, when we talk about amplification, here's what I find. The more you're in design, amplification really is a reaction. That's what it is. It's reacting. It's amplifying. There's a reaction. And that reaction is like exaggerating or mimicking the behavior of others. Conditioning can be internalized, like what's wrong with me, can be externalized, what's wrong with them. But can become the basis for decision-making in the mind if we're not in tune with the intelligence of the body. So parents need to begin to, as you observe your child, what you're going to notice is those reactions and the amplification. And we notice this, right? You have one child cry, And then all of a sudden there's a whole room of crying children. Nobody knows why they're crying, but they're all crying. Okay. Children will act out the conditioning through their behavior. So this is when you want to get them to, tap back in. What's the intelligence of the body? Go into the intelligence of the body. This is why meditation is becoming something that's ginormous, a movement for children. I know I have a friend here in the place that I live, and she spends hours and hours teaching children yoga and meditation, and it is just the most precious thing. Little children, the age of 3, and they're learning how to meditate. Like, imagine what our world is going to look like when these children are operating it. Relaxed, calm, centered. So when separated from parental conditioning, they will seek out those replacement conditioners. So as a parent, can begin to identify the ways they may be reinforcing their child's open centers conditioning. That's why we want to know what's the conditioning, what's open, what's undefined, what's what is defined, so that we can really have this internal dialogue within ourselves and help the children also do that with themselves, this connection with their inner authority. So even though the heart center is designed to be willful, okay, if it's open and children are amplifying this, they can become even more willful, stubborn. Tantrums can happen here. So this is about watching it. Or what I notice here is that they will try so hard to get people to value them based off of how hard they're working. What are all the things that they're doing in order to, uphold their worthiness? So just be aware of this. Again, these are just kind of reminders because you went through all of this in the previous modules. Solar plex can make mountains out of molehills. This is when it's undefined. They can be more nervous than people. They can be, more fearful of people, extremely afraid of confrontation and avoiding things, or they can get like super excited. What I witnessed is the fakeness of the excitement that can happen with an open solar plex. They fake the excitement because they don't want to be seen as different. So they'll fake their excitement, or they'll fake their sadness. Okay. Now that also goes for defined solar plex. So these things can be kind of interchangeable because even a defined center can be conditioned. G center, who I think I am, not knowing if I'm loved, not knowing my right direction. So this, a lot of peer pressure happens here. Trying to chase who loves me, who doesn't love me, right? These are young relationships that happen. Okay. The ajna. I think it's a good idea. There's so much mental pressure for people to, not ajna, splenic. I'm sorry. So I'm scared. So the external mental focus on survivability can see environments as unhealthy when they are not, or vice versa, conditioned to try to hold on to things in order to lessen the impact of the environment and the fears. So I have a nephew. I have lots of nephews, but the one nephew that I watched this play out, the open center, is, oh my goodness, as a little one, he was so afraid of everything, until my sister and I got him to really tap into his own inner authority and trusting himself and his sacral response. Does he now, he does some things, he does like parkour, and he does gymnastics. All of these things would have been outside of his capacity before because he was so scared. Now, when he can trust himself and he can move through the nervousness, through his defined emotional center, he can move through the nervousness and actually try it out anyway. Now his fears are starting to dissipate. Instead of being super fearful, he is cautious and yet still will make the attempt to play. So the Ajna Center, I think it's a good idea. So there's this external mental focus on how to see your past, present, and future, conditioned to try to establish certainties to hold the anxieties at bay. This is where our education system that tries to get us to memorize things, even though some of us aren't built for that. We're not meant to memorize. Trying to be certain so that we're not looked at as stupid or rejected for our mental ideas. And we do that by trying to, keep anxiety at bay. So we're, as a right-minded being, as a right-bodied being, our new way of moving into the future is all right, which means that like testing is going to go on to the wayside. It's more about, having you teach what you know. And that would clear up so much anxiety for that right-minded being. So watch the open ajna, trying to grab onto concepts that may or may not be healthy for your child. Open head. So internal mental focus, who I think I am, jumping to homogenized conclusions and formalizations, which become the basis of decision-making in order to relieve the pressure of doubt, confusion, and not knowing. Acts on things that don't matter. I have a totally open head center. And this has been one of my greatest teachings. Like things that don't matter just don't matter. They just don't matter. But as kids, we get caught up in those little tiny nuances that we think that matter and become huge things in our lives. As we age, we recognize a whole bunch of stuff doesn't matter. Root center, I have to get this done first. There's so much pressure here. So adds stress to, these open centers. So if the root center is open, then the stress will move into other centers that are open as well. And the external focus is always hurry, 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 hurry. If I get this done, then I can. If I hurry up and get this done, then I can. Sacral, decision-making condition by never knowing when enough is enough. So pushing your body past its energy limits. The body is intelligent. It tells you, hey, you need a nap. Hey, you need to disengage from this conversation. You need to disengage from this group. You need to disengage from your computer, your Netflix, the video games. You need to disengage from what you're learning. The body tells you it's intelligent. It's intelligent. And with the defined sacral center, it's consistently telling you all the time what you have energy for. Undefined, there's no consistency there. So it's really about reading your own energy field and getting to know when enough's enough. Because oftentimes I see these projectors, they push themselves for sure, mostly projectors. I'm not saying manifestors can't, but projectors push themselves past their limit all the time. They soak in that sacral energy all day long and they try their hardest to be the Energizer Bunny and run with it. Open throat, look at me, watch me, I can do it. This is where we're trying to attract or avoid attention. The mental pressure tries to get the throat to concretize certainty. Everything in the body graph, you've heard me say this before, and I'll say it again, is moving towards the throat center. It wants expression, it wants manifestation, and it wants action. That's what the throat wants. But if we are not taking a look at the intelligence of our body, the action can be incorrect. And what happens is the throat center is the thyroid. It's the thyroid. It's also the larynx. So I often see this where people who lose their voice. Why are you losing your voice? What's going on? You know, my husband and I are in the cattle ranching business. They're auctioneers that can go for 8 to 10 hours auctioneering because they're doing what they love. They're taking the correct action. They're doing all these things that they love. Someone who has, lost their voice. What is it that you are doing that your body told you, we don't have energy to take this action, to speak this? Relax. Let the intelligence of the body guide you. Thyroid. Wrong action depletes the thyroid. Correct action actually creates a healthy thyroid. All right. So now we'll just recap and go over really kind of quickly the process that if you want to work with parents and children, I'll give you a framework. All right. So you always want to have an intake or assessment. I do this with all of my sessions. Where are you at? What's going on? What's happening with the family? When I even just do individual people, it's like, hey, what are your biggest challenges at the moment? What are the things that you want to take away from a connection with me? What stage of development is the child in? Are they eating correctly? What's going on there? Food and the right, left, right, intelligent learning styles. Sleep, bedtime, type, aura, inner authority, exactly what you would do for any kind of reading, okay? Body profile, role development, profile, personality development, open center, what's the conditioning, okay? And then create a summary. However, here is key number 1. First, working with the parents. Is this parent actually engaged in their own human design development? How long have they been involved in it? What does this parent know or want to know about their child? Does the parent have particular concerns or issues with their child's behavior or personality? Explain to this parent the role of a parent from an HD perspective. We already went through that, right? 7-centered to 9-centered. It's not about the authority figure, pointing fingers, hollering, telling the child what to do. It's about this guidance into the inner self. So then you want to go into the stages of development, right? Like, where is this child in the stage of development so that you can help them, with that current stage of development, but also help them future pace themselves into the future development. And again, you can pause, write all these down, create this framework for yourself, create an intake for yourself. Right and left intelligent learning styles, right? So if they are left, this is where the child does really well. Their brain, body system needs to be nourished correctly so that they can store the information correctly. So you want to go into these learning styles. If they're right oriented, they want to teach it. Learn it, teach it, learn it, teach it, learn it, teach it. So become a really good student as a parent. Teach me what you learned today. Can you teach me what you learned today? I would love to hear what you learned today. Let's go into the kitchen and sit at the island. Or if they are left. If you can have a relationship with the teacher, like, what are all the things that they covered that day, right? What's going to be on the test? Test your child. Let's say you go on a family vacation. These are the kids that they're left, document what you did that day and then test them. hey, you know, when we looked at this quote unquote dinosaur, do you remember what this dinosaur, what they said about this dinosaur? Now, on the other hand, with the right, it would be, hey, teach me all the things that you learned at the dinosaur museum. And now all of a sudden, you know what they missed and what they didn't miss. Okay? Of course, sleep and bedtime, it's so important that we have the correct sleep and bedtime. I think that's one of the things that my parents did the best for me, was I did not have a bedtime. We were able to, I was able to, I don't know, I don't know what the experience of my siblings was, but I was able to expend my energy, go to bed. And a lot of times, well, when I was a teenager, I had a TV in my room. So I could watch TV until I was tired enough, or I could go into my room and read and learn and research, all in my own space, until I fell asleep. Often I fall asleep with books all over my bed, even to this day. Type and authority or aura. You want to really understand this, right? Get to know, what does the parents know about all of this? How deep are they in their experiment? How deep are they in their child's experiment? Inner authority. Understand what is everybody's authority in the family, but especially the parent, who's the caregivers, and are they trusting themselves so that they can really honor their child? And then again, we have the body and the personality developments. So again, you can pause this, write out any of these questions that you want to put into your assessment, or use as a guide to follow. And then we get to the open centers. So I'm going to be honest with you. When I do readings, I actually start here in the open centers. When I do sessions with clients, I always start in the open centers. Why? Because this is the space where most of the time they want to, they know it because they are trying to be it. And then I defunct all of that and drop them into their definition. So just an FYI. All right, friends, have fun playing with the child development aspect and opening a new pathway for you and your business.